This happened about 15 years ago, when I was just a kid, around 10 years old. My parents thought it would be okay for me to stay home alone for the first time while they ran a quick errand. I felt kind of excited, like I was going on an adventure. Our house was a regular 2-story place in a quiet neighborhood. It was full of family pictures, and the backyard had tall trees I used to play around. But that day, those trees felt a little bit scarier than usual. The first hour was fine. I played with my toys and watched cartoons. But then I heard a strange tapping sound coming from the attic. It was like someone was knocking softly. I thought maybe it's just the house settling, so I ignored it. But the sound didn't stop. It got louder, almost like it wanted my attention. My heart began to race, but I shook it off. I told myself I was being silly. I was in my room when I noticed my toy figures were slightly moved from their spot. They were always lined up neatly, and now they looked like they had been knocked over. I figured maybe I bumped them earlier. Just as I was about to put them back, I heard a whisper from the hallway. It sounded like someone saying my name. A chill ran down my spine. I froze, unsure of what to do. I slowly crept out of my room to check. That's when I saw a shadow slip past my door. My heart felt like it was pounding in my ears. For some crazy reason, I felt like I had to follow it. I walked down the dark hallway. The tapping noise from the attic grew louder. I could feel cold air brush past me, even though all the windows were closed. When I reached the staircase leading to the attic, my hands were shaking. I didn't know if I was brave or just being stupid. I looked up at the attic door. It was dark, and all I could hear was silence. It felt heavy, like something was waiting for me. I stood there, completely frozen. After what felt like forever, I heard the front door creak open. My parents had come back. I rushed to them, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I didn't tell them anything. I think I was scared they wouldn't believe me. I looked back at the attic, half expecting to see something watching me. Even now, I wonder what really happened that day. Was it just my imagination, or did something enter our home while I was there? The tapping and the whisper still haunt me. Just a few months ago, my parents told me they found a hidden door in the attic. They never mentioned it before. They say the house is old, but I can't shake the feeling that there's something dark hidden away up there. I don't think I'll ever stop being afraid of what might still be lurking in the shadows of my childhood home. The next day, I couldn't shake off the things that happened. I had to know more about that attic and the door my parents spoke about. I decided to go explore on my own. It felt like the only way to take back some control over my fear. After school, I climbed the stairs to the attic. I was nervous, but I remembered the stories I had read in ghost books. I thought if I pretended to be brave, maybe I really would be. The attic door was old and creaked as I pulled it open. Dust filled the air, making me cough. I stepped inside, my heart racing. I flipped the light switch, but nothing happened. I pulled out my flashlight from my backpack. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing old boxes and faded furniture. The atmosphere felt different this time, heavier. I felt watched, but I forced myself to search. That's when I found it, the hidden door. It was small, almost like a closet tucked away in the corner. It looked newer than everything else in the attic. My hands trembled when I reached for the handle. I half expected it to be locked, but it turned with ease. A shiver ran down my spine. I opened it slowly, holding my breath. Inside was a tiny, dark space, much smaller than I imagined. Something on the floor caught my eye. It was a small, dusty box. I picked it up, feeling a strange pull toward it. Right as I opened it, a gust of cold air rushed past me, making me stumble back. Inside the box were old photographs, but they didn't look like my family. The faces were unfamiliar, faded by time. Their expressions seemed off, like they were caught in a moment of fear or pain. I squinted at one, trying to make sense of it. That's when I noticed the figure standing in the background, half hidden. It looked like a shadow,
dark and twisted. I felt a wave of unease wash over me. Where did these pictures come from? I dropped the box, suddenly feeling like I was no longer alone. The air felt charged, and I heard that tapping sound again, louder and more frantic than before. I turned to leave, but couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As I rushed to the attic door, it slammed shut behind me. Panic flooded my body as I pulled on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. My breathing quickened. I was trapped. I turned back to the box, instinctively feeling I needed to know what it contained. Just then, the light flickered on and off, casting shadows all around me. I felt a presence in that space, something ancient and angry. Who were those people in the photos? What was that shadow? I needed answers, but I also wanted to run. With one final push, I threw my weight against the door. It burst open, and I stumbled out into the hall. I slammed it behind me and leaned against it, gasping for breath. My heart raced, and I knew I wasn't safe yet. In that moment, everything shifted. I realized whatever was in that attic was not just a memory or a ghost. It felt real. As I ran downstairs, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had unearthed something that was waiting, something that wasn't finished with me yet. The next morning, I tried to act normal, but the fear clung to me like a shadow. I told myself I wouldn't think about the attic. I focused on school and my friends, laughing along with their jokes. But every time the bell rang, I felt like I was rushing back to that attic, the tiny dark space and those strange photographs waiting for me. After school, I couldn't resist the urge to return. Knowing what was in that box made my curiosity burn even hotter. I grabbed my backpack and headed up the stairs again. When I reached the attic, the door felt heavy, almost like it didn't want me to enter. I pushed through, grabbing the flashlight again. Once inside, I paused, listening. The house felt too quiet. My heart raced as I stepped toward the hidden door. It was still shut, but something about it seemed different. I could feel the air around it, charged and alive. I took a deep breath, my hand shaking as I touched the handle. It opened with a slight click, and I was hit with that cold gust again. The box lay just as I left it, but when I started to pick it up, I noticed something I hadn't before. A scrap of paper was tucked underneath. It was torn and faded, but I could still make out some kind of handwriting. I pulled it free, my hands trembling. It read, "Beware the shadows that linger. They hold what you seek, but demand a price." Before I could think too much about what that meant, the temperature dropped sharply. I could see my breath misting in front of me. I clutched the paper, panic swelling up inside me. I turned to leave, but the door slammed shut again, harder this time, vibrating the floor beneath me. With a scream trapped in my throat, I turned back to the room. The shadows shifted along the walls, twisting and stretching. My flashlight flickered. I gripped it tightly, forcing myself to find courage again. I had to know what was happening. That's when I saw it, the outline forming in the dark, like a person emerging from shadows. My mouth went dry. I couldn't tell if it was real or just my imagination. The dark figure moved toward me slowly, and I felt an overwhelming need to run. But more than fear, I felt anger bubbling up. I was tired of being afraid. I stepped forward, yelling, "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" My voice echoed in the silence, and for a moment the figure stopped. It felt like it was considering me, unsure. Suddenly, the lights above me exploded, showering sparks all around. I dove to the side, narrowly missing the shards as they rained down. The figure dispelled into a cloud of shadows as the air filled with static energy. I scrambled to the hidden door, yanking at the handle. This time, it opened. I rushed out, my heart pounding as I slammed it behind me again. I was breathing hard, my mind racing. What had I just encountered? And what was that warning about shadows? I stumbled down the stairs, determination mixing with dread. I knew I couldn't ignore this anymore. There were answers buried deep within this house, and I wasn't going to stop until I found them. I spent the rest of the evening trying to distract myself. I watched TV and chatted with friends online, but my mind kept drifting back to the attic. That scrap of paper haunted me. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was a warning, but what did it mean? And what was that shadowy figure? Later that night, as I crawled into bed, I could still feel the chill in the air. It wrapped around me like a thick blanket, making it hard to sleep. Finally, I decided to take action. I had to find out more about this darkness in my house. I remembered my mom often said old houses had secrets. Maybe there were clues scattered around our home? With a plan in mind, I crept downstairs, heart pounding. The house was quiet, too quiet. I flipped a light on in the kitchen, and the brightness momentarily eased my racing thoughts. I grabbed a flashlight and headed to the living room. Books and trinkets filled the shelves, but something caught my attention. A large, dusty book sat on the coffee table. It looked out of place among the rest of the decor. Cautiously, I picked it up. The pages were yellowed and filled with handwritten notes. As I flipped through, I found sketches of strange symbols and faces that looked eerily familiar. My breath caught in my throat. One of the drawings resembled the outline of the figure I had seen in the attic. There were also names written beside each drawing, names I didn't recognize. But the last entry made my skin crawl. The Keeper of Secrets. I slammed the book shut. My heart raced anew. I thought of the wording. They hold what you seek, but demand a price. What price? I didn't have time to figure that out right now. I needed to keep looking. Then I heard it. A soft thump, like a footstep echoing from the hallway. My stomach dropped. Was someone else in the house? I moved back toward the kitchen, my eyes darting to each dark corner. I grabbed a kitchen knife for protection, even though I wasn't sure what I was afraid of. As I stepped toward the hallway, the thumping sounded again, louder this time. It was followed by a whisper, faint and unclear, but it sent shivers down my spine. Come back. The voice was soft, almost pleading. I froze, the horror of it sinking in. I knew that I should turn back, but something compelled me to take another step forward. The whisper rolled through my mind, urging me to discover the truth. I took a deep breath and moved into the dark hallway. The air was thick with tension. Just as I reached the shadowy edge, I remembered the book and its warnings. I hesitated, my hand gripped tight around the knife. Fear twisted in my stomach, but curiosity pushed me onward. Then I heard it, a glimmer of light in the darkness, like a beckoning finger. The whisper grew louder, telling me to follow. I couldn't resist. I stepped forward and reached for the light. As I did, the floorboards creaked beneath me. Something shifted in the air, and suddenly, everything went black. I stood in a vast, dark room that felt familiar but wrong. The air was heavy, thick with an eerie silence. I blinked a few times, trying to process where I was. The light that had drawn me in flickered somewhere in the distance, but it was more of a dying ember now. I raised the flashlight, the beam cutting through the dark, revealing walls lined with strange symbols. My heart raced. They looked like the sketches from the dusty book. Then a frigid breeze swept through, sending chills down my spine. It brought with it the faint whisper again, "Come back." I flinched and stumbled back a step, the knife clattering to the floor. Panic surged within me. I had to make sense of this. I scanned the room, searching for a door or an escape route. Instead, my gaze fell upon a figure shadowed in the far corner. At first, I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks, but as I focused, I could make out a face. It was gaunt, its eyes dark and hollow, staring right at me. I gasped, feeling the walls close in. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice cracking. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it raised a brittle hand, gesturing for me to approach. I was torn. Fear urged me to run, but the whispering voice returned, soothing as if it held answers. "Come closer." I crept forward, each step tentative. As I walked, the shadows swirled around me, almost alive. I could see the figure clearer now. It wore tattered clothes, like it had been trapped here for ages. "Please," I whispered, "I need to know what's happening." The figure's finger pointed towards the cold floor at its feet. I felt an inexplicable urge to look down. That's when I saw it, a dark outline etched into the floor. It looked like a trap door, an entry into whatever secret lay beneath. My heart raced again. This could be what I needed, but the fear crept back in. What if I wasn't ready for whatever was down there? Before I could decide, the room brightened momentarily, and I saw the figure's expression shift. For a fraction of a second, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. Sorrow, anger, and a yearning for freedom. Then darkness enveloped the space again, pulling me back into confusion. "Will you help me?" I asked, desperation leaking into my voice. The figure slowly lowered its hand, as if pondering my words. Suddenly, the air filled with a cacophony of whispers. They sounded angry now, demanding, "Leave! Leave!" I stumbled backward, the shadows pushing against me, and for a moment I thought I might be swallowed whole. But then I remembered the knife on the floor. I scrambled to pick it up, feeling its familiar weight in my hand. "I'm not afraid of you!" I shouted, thrusting the knife forward. To my shock, the shadows recoiled slightly. The figure seemed to waver, uncertainty flickering across its features. Maybe I could push through this. I stepped closer to the trap door until I felt the whispers intensify, almost deafening. Then the floor trembled beneath my feet. A crack opened in the ground, exhaling stale air, as if the house itself were awakening. "What is this?" I gasped. The darkness shifted again, swirling and pulsating. I had to choose, stay and confront whatever was beneath, or run and abandon the truth. In that moment, everything became clear. I had to know. I took a deep breath and dropped to my knees, ready to pry open the trap door. But just as my fingers brushed the edges, a scream sliced through the air, a scream that wasn't mine. I froze, fingers hovering above the cool surface of the trap door. Darkness enveloped me, but the scream shot through the silence. It echoed in my chest, an urgent reminder that I wasn't alone. My heart raced, pounding like a drum in my ears. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. I strained to listen, hoping for a response, but only silence answered. I didn't know what to expect next. Who had screamed? Was it the figure, or was it me? I edged back, my instinct screaming at me to escape. The chill in the air deepened, curling around me as if to restrain my movement. I glanced at the figure again. It still stood in the corner, but now it seemed less like an entity seeking freedom and more like a reluctant guardian of the secrets below. Suddenly, the trapdoor creaked, as if responding to my hesitation. My eyes widened, and I instinctively stepped back. "No, no, no," I whispered, fighting the urge to bolt for the nearest exit. But something compelled me to stay. I had to know what was happening. I had to understand. The whispers flared back to life, weaving through the thick air. "Find him! Find him!" They were more coherent now, almost like a chorus beckoning me forward. My breath quickened. Then a voice broke through the whispers. "He's waiting!" The words vibrated against the stone walls, echoing harshly. My stomach twisted. "Who?" I yelled. "Who's waiting?" I didn't expect an answer. Deep down, I knew that whatever was down there did not want to be found. Taking a cautious breath, I returned to the trapdoor, hope and dread battling within me. The outline looked almost like a call to adventure, and I told myself to be brave. I needed to pry it open. With trembling fingers, I gripped the edge, forcing it up. The wood resisted at first, giving way to a loud protest as I exerted more pressure. Just as it began to lift, the room darkened once again. The shadows morphed, surging towards me. I felt the weight of countless eyes upon me, pressing in like a heavy blanket. "Stop!" I shouted, swinging the knife wildly, adrenaline coursing through me. The air vibrated with a sudden burst of energy. The trapdoor flung open, and an intense light spilled forth, cutting through the darkness like a knife. I stumbled back, shielding my eyes. When I looked again, the figure had vanished. The whispers quieted, replaced by a low humming. My body felt tense, as if the walls had paused for breath.
I couldn't see what lay inside the trapdoor yet, but something pulled me closer, an invisible thread tying me to whatever mysteries awaited. I leaned over, peering into the glowing abyss, heart racing, but before I could fully grasp the scene below, a hand shot out from the darkness. My body froze in shock, and I realized this was only the beginning. The hand jerked back as quickly as it had emerged, and I stumbled backward, the knife slipping from my grasp. The trapdoor gaped open like a mouth ready to swallow me whole, the light now dimming to a soft glow. Confusion flooded my mind. What had I just seen? My instinct screamed at me to turn and run, but instead I found myself peeking back over the edge. Maybe it was just a figment of my imagination. Perhaps the shadows were playing tricks on me. I held my breath, straining to listen, but all I could hear was a throbbing pulse in my ears. And then, as if sensing my hesitation, something stirred within the depths. I leaned in closer, curiosity overcoming caution. "Hello?" I called out, my voice quivering. The silence that followed felt heavy. Suddenly, I spotted a glimmer at the bottom of the opening. It looked like an old locket, catching the last traces of light. Crouching down, I reached for it, feeling a pull that suggested it was more than just an item. It was a connection to something or someone. I grabbed the locket and pulled it up, its weight heavier than I expected. It had an intricate design etched into its surface, a swirl of vines and flowers. My fingers traced the patterns, but the moment felt wrong. The air shifted, the humming returned, louder now, vibrating through the floorboards beneath my feet. Just as I was about to open the locket, a noise shattered my focus. It sounded like a muffled voice coming from below, a soft plea that curled around my spine like icy fingers. I dropped the locket and stepped back. "Who's there?" No answer, just the echo of my own heartbeat. I turned to the room, searching desperately for something familiar, anything to ground me. Shadows danced across the walls, flitting just out of my line of sight. The ambiance shifted. Pressure built in the air, making my skin prickles. Then I noticed it. The figure was back, not in the corner anymore, but rising from the shadows of the trapdoor, its form becoming clearer. I could now see its features, gaunt and hollow, like it had walked straight from a nightmare. My breath caught. This was no guardian. It looked lost, desperate, like it had been bound to that space for too long. "Help him," it whispered, the words almost swallowed by the atmosphere, but I felt them resonate deep within me. "He's waiting." Before I could respond, the trapdoor rattled again. I fought the urge to flee, confusion clouding my thoughts. "Who?" I whispered, knowing there was no point. My heart was racing, a mix of fear and something that felt dangerously like hope. The figure raised an arm, pointing toward the locket I had dropped. I finally crouched to retrieve it, feeling an overwhelming sense of urgency pulling me toward it. The moment I touched it, a flash of memories crashed against me, visions of a small boy trapped, calling for help. Then everything snapped back to reality. The figure lunged for me, shadows spilling out like an avalanche. My hands trembled as I clutched the locket tightly, but when I looked up, confusion turned to horror. Someone else was in the room with me. I froze, heart pounding. The figure I had seen was now just a shadow in the corner, but the presence behind me was real and breathing. I turned slowly, trying to make sense of the new development. My eyes widened at what or who I saw. It was a man. He looked just as lost as the figure, his eyes searching the room with frantic energy.
He had disheveled hair, and his clothes were torn and dirty, like he had just emerged from a long ordeal. "You found it," he rasped, pointing at the locket in my hand. "Give it to me. You don't understand." My heart raced even faster. I backed away, holding the locket close to my chest. "What do you want?" I stammered, uncertainty settling in like a thick fog. The man took a cautious step toward me, desperation etched on his face. "It's a key. It unlocks everything. Please, you need to trust me." His voice trembled, but there was urgency behind it. "What do you unlock?" I shot back, my instincts screaming to get out of there. He glanced at the open trap door, eyes wide with fear. "The boy," he whispered. "You have to help him. It's not just a locket. It holds the answer, and I can't do this alone." The atmosphere shifted again. Fear clawed at my throat. It felt like the walls were closing in around me. I couldn't let this stranger get near me. I didn't know who he was or what he wanted, but still his words sank deep. "What happened to the boy?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He seemed to hesitate, fighting against whatever was holding him back. "He's trapped in the darkness. I'm trying to save him, but—" His voice broke, and in that moment a flicker of sympathy flashed within me. Suddenly, the room grew colder, shadows lengthening across the walls. I felt a presence more intense than before, almost suffocating. It was as if the trap door had opened, and the weight of its secrets was spilling out into the room. "Your decision matters," he urged, his voice strained. "You have to choose. If you give me the locket, I can go back. We can reach him." My pulse quickened. Could I really trust this man? The figure, the locket, the boy, it all felt tangled together. But could I risk it? Just as I was about to speak, the lights flickered and then went out, plunging us into darkness. Panic surged through me, and I fumbled for the locket in my pocket. It felt warm against my skin, pulsing like a heart. "What's happening?" I gasped. "Stay close to me," he shouted, but I couldn't see him anymore.
The shadows coiled tighter, swirling around us like a storm. I heard the boy's voice again, clearer now, echoing from the depths. "Help me!" The urgency of his plea settled deep in my bones. I needed to make a choice fast. There was no going back now. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for what was to come. "Okay," I finally said, feeling a strange resolve building within me. "I'll help you. Just tell me what to do." Before he could respond, a loud crash echoed through the room, and the floor trembled beneath our feet. Everything went dark. I stumbled, my heart racing as I fought to regain my balance in the pitch blackness. Fear wrapped around me like a choking vine. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence answered. Then came the sound, a faint scraping noise, as if something or someone was moving in the darkness. My breath caught in my throat. I forced myself to focus, feeling the locket still warm in my grip. It seemed to vibrate slightly, as if urging me to act. "Are you still there?" I asked, hoping to catch a glimpse of the man. No reply. Panic welled inside me. Suddenly the scraping halted. A whisper floated through the space. "You shouldn't have done that." The voice wasn't the man's. It was smooth, chilling. I shivered as dread curled in my stomach. I couldn't stay here. I took a step toward the trap door, trying to recall its location from memory. The urgency of the boy's plea echoed in my mind. I needed to reach him. But the moment I moved, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the room just enough for me to see the man again. He looked more distressed than ever, his face pale as if he had seen a ghost. "Don't move," he shouted, his voice rising with panic. "It's coming." A rush of cold air swept through the room, followed by a dark figure emerging from the shadows. The shape was indistinguishable, but it swayed and shifted, almost like smoke coming alive. I felt my heart pounding louder. I backed up, my hands searching for something to use as a shield. "What is that?" I yelled, fear coursing through me. "The trappings of the darkness," he gasped. "It's drawn to the locket. We have to get out, now." I didn't need to be told twice. I bolted for the trapdoor, unsure if I was running towards safety or doom. The darkness followed close behind. As I reached down to grab the handle, the darkness surged forward, twisting and writhing like it wanted to swallow us whole. "No!" I cried, struggling to pull the trapdoor open. It resisted, heavy and unnerving. "Trust me!" he shouted. He rushed over, his hands gripping mine to help yank the door open. Just as it began to creak ajar, the darkness lunged. I screamed, heat racing through my body. With a last effort, I pushed the trapdoor wide enough to tumble through, dragging him in after me. We landed hard, but just beyond the dim light filtering through the door, a new scene opened up before us. I blinked in disbelief. That's when I saw it.
A glowing orb, pulsating like a heartbeat, hovered softly in the center of the room. "Is this the boy?" I whispered, confusion mingling with fear. But as I looked closer, the orb began to twist, revealing a face, one I had never seen before, yet felt oddly familiar. Everything I thought I knew was about to unravel. The glow in the room enveloped us, illuminating the contours of a space that felt both otherworldly and deeply familiar. The orb's pulsating light revealed the faces of the familiar shadows I had glimpsed in the attic, the same haunting expressions of fear and longing. I could feel the weight of their stories pressing against me, like a chorus of silent screams reaching out for help, begging to be heard. The man beside me looked shaken, his eyes darting from the orb to the shadows. "This is it," he breathed, reverence and fear tangled in his voice. "This is where the boy is trapped. If we don't help him now, we might lose our only chance." I took a tentative step forward, heart racing. But how? Fear gripped me again as the shadows danced in the peripheral of my vision, swirling with newfound intensity. I could almost hear their whispers again, begging, demanding, swirling with a cacophony that clawed at my mind. "Focus on the locket," the man urged, clutching my arm tightly. "It's the key. Open it." I blinked down at the locket, feeling its warmth pulse in my hand. Part of me hesitated, unsure of what I might unleash, but those whispers, the child's plea, kept echoing in my head. I didn't have much time. With trembling hands, I raised the locket to my chest, feeling its energy flow through me. I flipped it open, wishing for a sign, a way to reach the boy trapped within the glowing orb. The moment I did, the atmosphere shifted. The shadows hesitated, the orb flickering in response to the locket's light. "Help him!" the man shouted again, desperation spilling through. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, focusing on the warmth radiating from the locket. I felt memories flooding back, images of laughter and the innocent joy of childhood, that familiar light of hope. Suddenly, I felt a pull, a connection to the orb. I murmured, "I believe." The words felt powerful, and in that moment the glow intensified, illuminating the entire chamber with a brilliant light. The orb trembled, and just beyond its surface I glimpsed a boy's face. He was small, with wide, frightened eyes that mirrored my own. "Help me!" A plea filled the air, raising the hairs on my arms. I took a step forward, heart pounding. "I'm here!" I yelled, sensing the connection growing stronger. "We're going to get you out!" The boy's expression changed. For a moment he looked hopeful, but then the shadows began to whip around him violently. Confusion and fear returned to his face as they closed in. "Focus!" The man's hand pressed against my back, urging me closer. "It's the locket. Use its power." I concentrated harder, pouring every ounce of determination into the locket. The shadows around us screamed in a wailing frenzy, feeding off the boy's fear. Just as I felt myself falter, the locket shone even brighter. "I won't let you take him!" I shouted into the chaos. The shadows recoiled, shifting their form. The boy's eyes grew wide as he reached out, tiny hands extending toward me.
Time blurred as I felt my spirit intertwining with his, drawn toward the orb. In a moment of unimaginable clarity, everything coalesced. The room, the darkness, the boy, they merged into a swirling mass of emotion and energy. I suddenly understood. The shadows feasted on despair, thriving in fear. To weaken them, I had to amplify the light. "Think of hope!" I cried, my voice slicing through the air like a beacon. "Think of freedom!" The shadows recoiled, their whispering morphing into anguished shrieks. The orb erupted in a burst of radiant light, and I saw the boy's body flicker, struggling against the darkness, trying to drag him back. "Now!" the man's voice rang out, infused with urgency. I held the locket aloft, feeling its power surge. I called to the boy, "Come to me, you're not alone." In that moment, everything erupted in a brilliant wave of light, and as it broke through darkness, it felt like a dam bursting. The shadows shrieked one last time. Then they were consumed, their energy dissipating like smoke in the wind. I gasped. The boy was free. He ran to me, his form solidifying in the glow. Our surroundings faded, the light swallowing the dark. Moments stretched into eternity until everything became still. Suddenly, I felt a pull, a rush of warmth, an embrace that enveloped us all. The boy was here, but so was everything I didn't understand. The shadows, the figure, even the man. As the light dimmed, the chamber grew quiet. I looked around, half expecting to see the shadows lurking, but they were gone. The boy stood before me, his spirit glowing with a soft luminescence. He smiled, relief washing over him. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice echoing softly in the air. I nodded, but couldn't shake the questions in my mind. What did we truly release, and where would this leave us? Behind me, the man had turned gray and shadowy, almost ethereal. "He will have his freedom," he said softly, a bittersweet smile gracing his lips. "But know this, a part of their darkness will always linger." As the light began to dissipate, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. The boy was free, the shadows were gone, but I was left with unanswered questions and the remnants of a mystery that would forever linger in my heart. I had escaped, but not unscathed. I turned to the boy and whispered, "What does that mean for us?" His eyes widened, the pulse of the room shifting once more. But before he could respond, the world tilted, and with a final flash, everything went dark again. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my empty hallway, standing before an ordinary trapdoor. Reality settled in. I could still feel the weight of the locket around my neck, pulsating softly as a reminder of what I had witnessed. And yet, as I stared at the closed trapdoor, uncertainty gnawed at me. What just happened? Was it real, or just a shadow whispering tricks through a child's imagination? I still think about it sometimes. The boy, the darkness, the journey, all still swirl through my mind. For better or worse, I navigated that realm and touched the inexplicable. I don't think I'll ever have the answers, nor do I know if my childhood home is truly free of what once lingered. But I keep the locket close, a reminder that the shadows may be gone, yet their stories live on.